So we're going to combine these two pieces together, and we're actually going to miter them together, which is easier than you think when, you know, putting this stuff together. So here's how I do it. There are a bunch of different ways, but this is how I started teaching my beginning students, and they tend to do pretty good. And I usually, you know, I measure with how good a technique is, with the ease that they have with using it. I don't ever want to teach something that's frustrating to anybody, least of all myself or you guys. So we're going to start by trimming off this extra. I have a lot extra because I had to make 2 strips. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these. That one's an okay length. And I'm just going to chop them off real savagely because I know I have enough. Okay, so plus the shorter pieces are much more manageable. So here I'm going to take my first piece, I'm going to lay it down. I'm going to cut it a little bit just so it'll lay flat inside here. Alrighty. And then I'm going to open it up, keeping lined up with the fabric as best I can. Smaller pieces are harder to do than bigger pieces because we can't leave ourselves the room that we like. So with a bigger quilt, you guys won't have to work around it so much. I'm going to lay my ruler. See that line running in the middle, the 45-degree angle line thing? I'm actually gonna, if ever you do a project, if you ever do this and you feel like you want just a little bit more room, you can do it. Just open it up. No reason to struggle. Okay. There we go. That should be a little bit easier. I'm going to draw a 45 right about the center. Using my wonderful big pen that has served me so well. Okay, lines drawn. Now we cut very, very carefully with our left-handed scissors, and we're right-handed. I have 2 lefties that work in my shop, so I have these, and sometimes they're the only scissors I can find. The struggle is real, people. Okay, so the next one's going to get laid down, the next strip. And we're going to open it up in a similar fashion, and I'm going to snip a few stitches. This is why pot holders are a pain to bind, because they're just so small, it's hard to get enough room. You guys see how much room I'm leaving myself too. Like, give yourself a good amount of space. All right. So I'm actually gonna lay the first one I cut inside the other one, all right? And I'm gonna see where the seams meet with that nice jagged cut that I made. Man, is that jaggedy. And I'm just gonna mark where it is, okay? And then I'm gonna open it up, make it lay as flat as I can. Put the 45-degree on the edge of the binding itself and mark a line. Now these 2 lines are where they meet up. But if you think about it, we're gonna sew it together with a seam. So we've got to add some in, or we're going to binding that's too short. I add 3/8. Depending on how you sew a 1/4 inch and how your machine is, you might add something different. Add at least a 1/4, but less than a 1/2, okay? Make some placemats. I just marked my fabric. Make some placemats. and practice. Something bigger than this. Okay. So I'm just drawing that 45-degree line all the way down. Okay, so now there it's marked. I have my extra in. We're gonna cut the second line we marked, okay? Don't cut the first. That would be bad. Well, not really bad. I mean, it's fixable, but you know, it takes more time, and we already hate doing binding, right? So now I've got 2 pieces. That match up together. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take them and I'm gonna match them together, and I'm gonna let them overhang a little bit. It's like sewing triangles. Okay, there's a little bit overhang. Overhang there. And I'm gonna, this is just like we're setting it up like we were our other miters. It's just already pre-cut. See what I'm saying? No? That's all right. Trust me. Okay, so I've got those pinned. I'm gonna sew a 1/4 inch on the seam, and then we're gonna hope and pray that it fits. Just kidding, it'll fit, maybe. It should fit. Back at the sewing machine, we're gonna sew our 2 pieces together. And since my piece is so small, it's gonna be a little bit of a struggle to get it under. Standing up helps. Okay, so I'm gonna start it. Sewing a 1/4 inch all the way down. Sewing over pins. That's okay. Now the moment of truth. Gonna pull it, and it fits. Look at that. If it's a little bigger, a little smaller, don't worry. That binding will stretch a little bit, but all looks good. Now we're gonna finish sewing it to the piece. If by chance it comes off way off, okay, don't stress. Just take a little bit of it off, unhook it from the quilt, and miter a whole nother strip on and start again. Don't have to take the whole binding off. We've got our piece, and we're gonna press it. Turn my iron off. Always a good thing. And I'm actually just gonna come and press it out. Don't really need to press it over. We'll be folding it over when we sew it down. So, but you do wanna make sure there's no lip. Pressing is really important. Always press, never skip it. This stage is as important as like stitching to me. You gotta press well. Remember, we're not, well, I'm doing it, but you don't sit here, rub it. We're lifting and pressing, lift, press, okay? We're gonna get in these corners and rub our nose of the iron in it. Press it out, okay? You can starch them. I mean, I don't, but you can. I know, surprising. My love of starch. All right. Once we get it all pressed, it'll flip over really nicely. See? So all we have left to do is do a decorative stitch. So let's head back to the sewing machine. Okay. So now we are going to do some decorative stitches on our machines. So I usually like to use something that's fairly open for this, and Usually, you know, the thicker satiny stitches just take a really long time to do, and I'm impatient, so I'm going to do something that I call the chicken scratch stitch. For those of you who have taken classes from me, you're familiar with this one. It's on almost every sewing machine, and so it's a lot of different people could do this stitch. If you want to know dimensions that I use, I'm usually at a width of 6, and I just use default length, which is 2.5. So now I have a walking foot on, as you can notice, okay? And it has a little valley right here, okay? That valley is where I'm going to rest my binding, where it meets my quilt. Come on, focus camera. There you go, good job. All right, so I also have this lovely 1/4 inch stitch all the way around. I'm gonna use that too. I'm going to take my binding and go ever so right over it. Stick a pin. And then I'm going to come over here and go ever so slightly over it. By using my 1/4 inch mark, I'm going to make the back look even as far as stitching. And I'm going to make my binding look even as far as stitching. You'll see what I mean in a minute. Now, I always start at a corner when I start binding. I don't know, I just feel like it's easier. So I'm going to come up to this corner, and here's what I do for 1/4. So I like to push it out, make sure I've got all my fabric free. And I'm going to do one side, lining it up with that 1/4 inch, okay? This is going to be interesting with a camera in between me. Okay. Then I'm going to take this corner and I'm just going to pull it out, and I'm going to take my finger, find where the edge of the quilt is. That's where I'm going to fold, okay? Making a nice little fold. I love for my fold to be nice and 90 degree and meet each other right here, okay? That takes practice. But by doing what I just did there, that will help. And then I kind of just stick a pin across it to hold it, just like that, okay? A lot of pinning. Now I used to pin all of it at once, but then I started scratching the dickens out of my legs with needles because my quilt would be dragging. So I just pin a little bit at a time to save my legs. Now this is thick, so you can try this without a walking foot, but get a walking foot. Invest in a walking foot. So I'm going to start right here on my corner. I'm going to lower down. Decorative stitches, when they start, actually stitch in place if you watch them. I'm going to pull that out. When we're doing decorative stitches, we want to make sure that the fabric is nice and free to stitch, or we'll stack stitches. Stacking stitches isn't as pretty. For those of you who have stitched in the ditch for quilting, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The walking foot helps with this, and also keeping the weight off of the machine. Your machine doesn't want to drag, 20 pounds through it. So you've kind of got to take the weight off of it. So if you had a bigger piece, you would be holding the weight up while you're doing this. You can do that with a chair or a table. You can do it with a partner. You can rope somebody into holding it for you. It's king size, especially the king size quilts. You gotta have a little help. So you can see I'm just pinning, and then I'll start sewing. I'm writing this line right here, right in the valley of my foot. And so what that's doing is it's putting half the stitch on one side and half on the other. And that's how I want to do decorative stitching. You can straight stitch this down, Straight stitch is, you know, if it's not straight, it's very obvious and it can be difficult to catch everything. So for you beginners out there, start with a decorative stitch. Every machine has at least one. So use your decorative stitch instead of straight stitch. It will be a lot more forgiving to you. And it'll look so pretty. Now as far as thread color goes, I don't like my binding stitches to stick out too much, especially when I make mistakes. So I actually pick a color that blends the best, and for this one I picked a green. You also want to wind a bobbin in the same color. All right, here I am at this corner again, so I'm going to pin one part, pull it out, then I'm going to take my finger, rub down until I feel the edge of the quilt, and then I'm going to flip it over, just like that. And pin it. Actually, I want to pin the other side here too. I like to flip the binding to the front instead of the back because I like to sew on the front because I know I'm catching everything. I've had a couple people ask me that, why I sew it the way I do, and that's why I had too many, in my early quilting days, I had way too many mess ups where I would miss the back. So, all right, now here's a fun little trick. When we get to the end of this corner, I'm gonna sew a little bit through the corner, and then I'm gonna tie it off. But instead of using my tie off button, which would complete my decorative stitch, I'm gonna hit my reverse button. You can't see it in frame, but I'm hitting the reverse button. And then I'm hitting my start stop, and my machine will take one more stitch and then stitch in place. Basically, a tie off just puts a knot at the back. Since we can't back stitch on decorative stitches, that's what we have to do. So there is my stitches. Very Christmassy. See if I can get the focus. There you go. See how pretty that is? You can see I did it in the quilting as well. And then the back, by lining it up the way I did, the back's gonna be nice and clean as well. This takes a little bit of practice, okay? So, don't be disturbed if the first one you do doesn't look just like mine. So when I start the next side, I just drop my foot just like I started in the beginning, and I'm going to stitch it all down. And since this is supremely uncomfortable to do with a camera in between me, I'm gonna do the rest and then off camera. All right guys, that's binding. It's the final step of our quilt. If this is the first video you've watched, definitely check out my channel for some of the earlier videos. We talk about cutting and ironing, all that fun stuff, and 1/4 inches. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or complaints about this video, please link them in the comments below and I will get back to you. For those of you who have been waiting for this tutorial for a while, thank you for being so patient. I'm still trying to balance out store and long arming and teaching and doing these. I've got a lot of good ideas of what I want to do over the summer in the future, so definitely check back. If you subscribe to the channel, you'll get a little email telling that a new tutorial is up, so definitely do that. You can also follow me on Instagram and Facebook. So I am the Lazy Quilter, and I will see you guys for the next video.